Hello, welcome to today's episode of Womb Warmer. I am your host, Anna Kalingo.
Sorry, I had spit in my mouth. I'm nervous right now for the bracket. You know, it's a big day.
Huge day.
It's getting hot in this fur, too. I'm Phil, also known as Philopian Tube, and a sidekick.
Yes, and we will start by explaining. I realize our last episode, he is a recurring guest, obviously. In our last episode, we did not explain the origin of Philopian Tube, which is really quite simple. But I think it's fair to give credit where credit's due and say that Philip is the creator of Womb Warmer.
It was, and I think more so I came up with the name.
Yes.
I think, you know, the concept was from your mind, yeah. and then I took it and ran with it a little bit. So Philopian Tube, we could go into an hour-long podcast about this, but we have other things to talk about. Philopian Tube is the sidekick.
Yes.
And that is me.
He is the Robin to my Batman.
Exactly.
So we are here today. For those of you who missed the previous podcast on our bracket for childhood memories, you need to go back and watch it, number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, you will notice that we are in a different studio setting than we were last time. Last studio setting looked like the Saw room. Now it has been transformed by my nieces to look like a tornado. And so we have
It has character.
Out.
Yeah, it has character in there.
There's a fort. It's very cool. We are getting used to having kids, so we're getting prepared, right? And you will notice behind us, we have our fantasy football draft board. We did that last night. Mm-hmm. First live draft. Very exciting. Philip, what were your takeaways from the draft?
A few takeaways. First off, I'm projected to finish last in the league with a record of 2-12, which I think is ridiculous. I don't think Yahoo knows what they're talking about. I also think that Yahoo doesn't really serve a purpose in this world outside of fantasy football. So it was tough to get the draft going. A lot of forgotten passwords, a lot of forgotten email addresses. But we got there and we did it.
We did.
And yeah, it's going to be a good season.
Yeah, Yahoo has really, I think, put all of their eggs in the fantasy football basket. Shout out to YouTube TV where you can sync it with your Yahoo fantasy account and have your games based on your players, which is pretty sweet.
It's pretty awesome.
Aside from fantasy football, though, I don't think anyone uses Yahoo for anything.
Nope.
So good work, whoever's running that division.
Yeah, they really figured. I mean, could you imagine that meeting? And they were like, what if we just went all in on fantasy football only?
They've done good.
It's working out. They're still around, you know?
All right. Without further ado, we will come into today's Elite 8 matchups. Yeah, the blanket's already off.
The blanket's off.
You'll notice that Philip has a different shirt on than he has for the past 7 years.
7 years, yeah. New shirt. I'm not big on buying clothes. I like the idea of clothes. I think they serve their purpose in society, just not for $88.
Exactly.
That's my issue, yeah.
It's difficult. Okay, so let's see. I will put the bracket in front of the... we are out a producer today, so that's sad. Here you can pause and look at it for yourself, and we will go over the matchups and review the rules real quickly. So first trips, we have the 1 seed Cedar Point versus 2 seed Ellicottville. The other side of that bracket, we have Grandma's House versus Friday Night Football. We have from the Life Shaping region, Sitting on the Roof versus the Pool Clogging. And then finally, we have Everyday Activities, Goobs versus Fort Building.
Mm-hmm.
Do we want to run down the criteria real quick? How we're looking at these?
Yes, I'm going to have you do that again.
The criteria would be, folks, the momentary impact, the nostalgic impact, and the overall longevity impact.
Yes,
essentially.
Yeah, right.
And I like to throw in the question, which could you remove from your childhood, too, as we get to tighter matchups,
like that. Yeah,
right?
That's a great question.
Right. If your childhood was without it, would you be who you are today? Okay, great. So without further ado again, I've said that twice already in the episode. That's embarrassing.
It's all right.
I might have to cut
we
it out.
can edit that out. Yeah, that's okay.
Let's dive in. Cedar Point versus Ellicottville. Go.
Well, like with the last time, I think if you know me, you know the direction I'm going with this. Although, honestly, this is one I've struggled with.
Mhm.
So I think I think there are more similarities than there's some matchups that we can pit up against one another here. So you have summer versus winter, right?
Mm.
You told me not to smack the table. I'm literally just like every word just hitting the table. So you have summer versus winter. So obviously there is the benefit of summer, you're outside, it's short sleeves, summer vibes. Winter, you get the coziness factor.
Mhm.
You also have to take into account, which I didn't do last time, you have to take into account the negatives. So the hot, sweaty lines of Cedar Point, the freezing temperatures. I think the last 3 times I went to Ellicottville, it was like 5 degrees or lower. So there's there's some perseverance that's needed for both.
Resilience, definitely.
Yeah, and then you have some of the little memories that don't necessarily have anything to do with skiing down a hill or with riding a roller coaster. We touched on the lodge last time, but those Uno games in the lodge with the hot chocolate, it's tough to beat those memories. You also have at Cedar Point, you have the picnic tables over by Magnum where we'd leave the park and go out and have our little, our little bit of nutrition to get us through the rest of the day.
Some sustenance.
Yep.
Also, good to acknowledge that we did spend the night at places at Cedar Point, so it was more of a weekend long thing. Right. Now, a couple thoughts I have. One, the last episode was filmed directly before we went to Cedar Point, and as a childbearing woman at the park, I would like to say I think that their services could be a little more catered to me. And really, in retrospect, I should have just gone to guest services and cut this off at the beginning. However, I did not, and they were really unwavering about letting me just stand in line.
They really didn't believe that she was going to get out of line before riding the roller coaster. I think that, I don't know, because you didn't have you didn't have any kind of, you weren't walking up there like, oh, I just want to get in line for the roller coaster. I promise I'm not going to ride. I feel like
I was very legitimate. And
yeah.
So I will say, one plus to Cedar Point is in the last 20 years, they have added the Fast Pass, right? So you can bypass the long line. So we waited for one long line for Millennium Force, and then we got the Fast Pass because we're not about to stand in line with plebes. It's too much. However, you have to scan your Fast Pass. I didn't want to pay $160, and the woman in the Fast Pass purchasing area told me that it would be fine. They just let me through. I think she didn't account for the fact that there were a lot of people there who were foreign and probably just wanted to stay and not get
deported.
Kicked out.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep. I agree.
And maybe culturally are more rule followers than Americans. And
well, I mean, just look at speed limits in every other country.
Yeah.
Right? Like you go 1 kilometer over, you're getting pulled over. Whereas here, we see 70 and we're like, oh, let's go 80.
Exactly. The speed limit seems stupid.
Yeah.
They're dumb.
It's a suggestion.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a speed suggestion.
So anyways, I was not allowed to stand in line, despite the fact that I was not going to ride the ride. So that was a low. I think the communication could have been a little better and crisper, but maybe just from the top down. I don't actually blame the people on the ground, the feet on the ground, right? I blame executives there. So that was a low. Here are my questions for this matchup, okay?
Let's hear them.
So, one, if you could never do either again, which one would it be? Cedar Point or Ellicottville?
If I could never do either one.
Yeah, you had to choose one that you would never do again.
And it's specific. It's not just it's not skiing as a whole.
No, not this question.
It's specifically, okay. So I'm going to say I would choose to never do Ellicottville. Cedar Point wins that.
Yeah.
I'm going to word it that way. Yeah.
Nice.
That was a test air horn.
Okay, but if you could never do the activity again, go to a theme park or go skiing or snowboarding.
Right.
which one would you choose?
Oh, man. I would probably choose skiing over
Theme park.
going to a theme park. Yes.
And
Yeah.
and the final piece of that would be learning young, right? So I think there's a good argument for both of these here, because with skiing and snowboarding, for sure, it's easier to learn when you're young.
Yes. Yep.
You can fall and get back up. Your limbs are more nimble. Your joints are more nimble. You're less fearful. You can fly off skis and really not be impacted at all.
Yeah. You're just like a little rag doll out there.
Exactly. Yeah. Throw you around.
Yep.
Cedar Point, not the same. Or in that you can go on roller coasters and start going on roller coasters older, but it's still easier to adapt when you're younger, I would say.
Yeah.
And to build different mentality when you're
exactly.
younger.
I think it's all about building the mentality when you're younger. But with that being said, I think between the two, if you take your average 25-year-old to 35-year-old who's never been on a roller coaster or never been skiing or snowboarding, it is much easier to get them into riding roller coasters than it is to get them on the sticks.
Exactly.
Or on a board, you know?
Exactly. So I'm going to say, one, I agree with you that if I had to choose between going to Cedar Point or going to Ellicottville, I would choose Cedar Point. But if I had to choose between going on to a theme park and going snowboarding, I would choose snowboarding.
Now it's all about how we weigh those answers.
Okay, the final argument, see, I have a lot of arguments for this one, and I don't know which way I'm going yet, but the final argument for Cedar Point is that my husband, who grew up in Hawaii, dreamed about going to Cedar Point for his childhood. He would watch videos of Cedar Point roller coasters during his childhood, and then would say, why would I ever go to Ohio? I'll never be there. And yet here he is.
Permanently, actually, here. He is
Don't
here.
say that to him. But we got to leave some wiggle room in his head. But he's here and he's gone to Cedar Point. So that is a cool, little providential happening.
Yeah, a little full circle moment. Yeah.
He also snowboards though, and I love snowboarding with him. So I like that. Okay, I'm decided.
I'm decided.
Okay, I'm going Ellicottville.
Oh, at Cedar Point. We could always table it for now and then bring in a third opinion here in a little bit.
So we have a third opinion. She's gonna have to come down and break this tie. But for now, let's go to the other side of the bracket. Let's go with sitting on the roof versus pool clogging.
Ooh, this is I'm actually kind of excited for this matchup right now. Do you want me to start off with this one?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I know coming in which one I'm going with. That said, I can be swayed. With the sitting on the roof, we touched on a lot of it last week, last month. A lot of memories up there, a lot of life discussions up there, a lot of life problems being solved on the roof. There was the thrill factor of us not actually being allowed up there. Although I don't know if we ever asked.
No, we didn't.
Yeah.
So
that would have been a stupid question to ask. So I'd say the nostalgic factor of the roof is huge. So with pool clogging, we talked a little bit last year. We talked a little bit about how it was a catalyst for a series of events in your life. We didn't touch on those events very much. We can or cannot touch on some of those, but I was thinking specifically nipple-related incidents. And then I realized it also kind of set off a series of clogging-related incidents. It was really, really the whole package there. And so I'd say, like, in terms of impact, that's huge.
True.
It's also like, are we going for positive impact or negative impact? Because I don't know how much you needed those things to be part of your life. Right.
I am.
Maybe you can touch more on that.
I hadn't thought about both of those, because I would say I have a fair number of embarrassing stories, both related to nipples and clogging, which is interesting.
Right. And these aren't just like, it's not just like, oh, I clogged my bathroom. Like, it's...
No. It's, I oh, I clogged the doctor's private bathroom whose triplets I nanny for while they had friends over for dinner and I was 15. Although really, I don't know how. I think that was on the toilet, not on me. I I think a lot of it is plumbing issues, not personal issues.
Did you bring that up to him in that moment? Have you seen a plumber lately? Have you had someone look at this? This doesn't feel like it's my fault.
Exactly. I think he did directly ask me, so you went to the bathroom that is my private bathroom, that is the bathroom that only I am allowed to go in? Yes, that's the one. That's the one with the issue. I'd check that out if I were you. Just be up here with your crying children. Also, nipple related, not just like, one random night, but no, standing in front of an entire gymnasium of, I don't know, probably like 1,000 people, right? Maybe 1,000 people.
Mom asked me last night what our podcast was about, and I was like, I'm a little bit disappointed that you haven't listened yet, but it's about childhood memories. And then I brought up that she asked what some of them were. I didn't talk about the roof. I wasn't like, I don't know if I should bring that up.
Does she know?
Yeah, does she know about it? But I did bring up the pool clogging incident, and then she on her own brought back, she's like, well, you know what happened later in her life. And so that was a big one. When my best friend came over to hang out at the house, and I was down in the basement and you were upstairs, and I feel like you're better to speak on this.
He was not down in the basement. They were leaving. I was 18, so they were 15, so he wasn't young, and they were going to a baseball game, and so I heard the garage door open and I heard the car exit, and so I thought, okay, I'm free and clear. I was late for work, and my mom always washed my Cheesecake Factory uniform, so it was outside of my door, and I thought, this is great, I'll just change right here. So I change, and then I look to my left because my door is right by the stairs, and I look to my left and I see Philip's best friend Ryan walking up the stairs, and he had turned around before I saw him, so he didn't know that I knew that he had seen my boobs.
I think he just pulled like a quick, he peeked real quick, went, all right, well.
Take a mental snapshot of that. And then it came up like 2 years later, probably, that, he had seen them. So that was an embarrassing moment. But it's like these happen probably, 4 years apart from each other. Mm-hmm. So they're just pretty consistent throughout my life, even my adult life.
Yeah.
I would say I was at Amazon, and not nipple totally related, but on my breasts, I was leading a meeting planning Prime Day, which is everyone knows it's a big day. So I come back from my meeting, I'm sitting at my desk, and I'm feeling, like I know what I'm doing. I went in there and I led that meeting. And
some days you just have it.
You know? Exactly. And I looked down, and there was a thong stuck to my sweater because it's stuck to my sweater in the wash.
Inside or outside of your sweater?
Outside.
Yeah, I knew the answer. I just wanted to clarify.
Okay, so clogging the pool, and I will say, as far as how it has shaped my life, I think I have a really great sense of humor and resilience.
Yeah, valid.
And I cannot be knocked down. You knock me down, I get back up again.
Possibly topless.
I don't even know how that would happen. Sometimes it just happens. Anyways, sorry, Vance. I hope that you're not listening to this. And okay, so I think that's a pretty strong case. The only thing I would say about it is that I don't know how it impacted your life, how my embarrassing moments have impacted your life.
Right. It's basically just given me stories. And I think that's basically, because it's like, I don't have to worry, like, my nipple shows. Like, it's not that big of a deal, right? But I have enjoyed the stories.
They are entertaining, and maybe...
what we should do is we should call up Ryan and ask how it's impacted his life. Also, shout out Ryan.
There we go. Okay, so the roof. My main new argument for the roof is, guys, I don't know if you remember because it did happen like a whole month ago. Yeah, did the news cycle. That's a very long window. But there was an assassination attempt on a former president of the United States, which some would say is a big deal.
Some
Yeah,
people are saying.
yeah, people have said. And then and then a week later, it was replaced by the campaign of joy, which I have a whole nother issue.
This could be a whole
with
nother
joy
podcast.
being brought into my politics. Joy is a fruit of the spirit, everyone. It is not dependent on who is president. It is dependent on the Holy Spirit living within you. That is my soapbox about joy.
Amen.
I do not want politics stealing that word. But the slope. Let's talk about the slope of the roof.
Yeah. I mean, intense grade.
Yeah.
Especially now that I know what fully grown, specially trained adults are capable of.
Yeah.
I felt like James Bond climbing up that roof.
Honestly, I thought that maybe I should apply for the Secret Service after hearing that the slope was a deterrent to them standing on the roof and guarding that roof, right? I was like, well, I can do that. And I'm a woman.
Yeah.
So should I be part of the Secret Service?
Feels like an easy answer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I got to pop this little baby out and go stand in front of a 6'4" man and guard him.
Right.
I
mean, you're due in October. You still got you can provide some protection during the during election season still at tail end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the slope. The slope was definitely more intense than that one.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
I felt a lot better about ourselves. And that's my only argument for the roof is the intense grade of the slope. So Phil, which one are you going with?
So due to the direct impact on my own life, I'm going with roof.
Yeah. I would say I am also, as much as I love pool clogging, I think because pool clogging really has impacted my life more than yours, and it's not a mutual impact of both of us. Except I would say maybe you had an example of watching someone, fight through adversity.
Right, that's true.
Overcome.
Yeah.
Have seen me overcome
a
lot of things that
accurate. Yeah,
I
admirable
have put in my own
for
way.
Sure. Yeah.
I will also say roof because it has impacted both of us mutually. So we can agree on that. Amazing. All right. Which one should we do next?
Let's go down to, let's do Goobs versus fort building. Goob traditions versus fort building.
Great. So Goob traditions, the argument I have here that was not brought up last time, the new bit is Johnny Schmoker. Mm-hmm. So one of the activities that we did growing up was golfing with my dad. And I think, one, this says a lot about our father because oftentimes dads will go golfing to escape their family.
This is true, yeah.
But he never wanted to escape us. He invited us into his world, which I think, shout out, Dad.
Shout out. Carry on.
As a child, I think it impacted me, always knowing that I was never a burden to Dad, right? I think he genuinely enjoyed having us along with him. And he would ask us, how far, what iron should I use? Anna, look at the sprinkler head. How far am I? What iron should I use? What's the slope of the green? Again, slope.
Yeah.
And Johnny Schmoker was
Why are you peeing on the ground? You're 18.
I was 17 for the
Still
record
childhood.
when I peed my pants on a golf course. I would love to tell you that I was underage drinking with my parents and that's why I peed on the golf course, but it wasn't. I just had to pee.
And in your defense, you did trip and fall.
Exactly.
There was a lot of gravitational pull, and then you started laughing.
Yeah.
And that impact,
and then I couldn't hold it, and then I just peed. Don't worry, we played 5 more holes. So that the priorities were straight, obviously. Anyways, Johnny Schmoker was the imaginary man who Dad always played against, and he always shot bogey. So he'd shoot 18 over par, and Dad would compete against him. He would win most of the time. Some of the times he wouldn't win. It depended on the day.
Or if he was allowed to use mulligans.
Yeah, exactly.
Which he usually was.
Yeah.
So
mulligans were huge. And during that time, too, Sandridge was being built. So then we'd go over from the public Chardon Lakes golf course to Sandridge, which was the mecca of golf courses in the area. It's very beautiful. There's one hole where
it's the Augusta of Northeast Ohio.
Exactly.
That's what people are saying.
It's true. Yeah. That's what it is. There is one hole where you see 0 sand traps from the tee, and then you get up and there's like 21 sand traps hidden along the hole, which is all a lie.
Sweet. Yeah. Pretty cool.
So I'm going to throw that into the mix for Goobs. Also, as far as lasting impact as that goes, I do still enjoy golfing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I don't golf at all, but I enjoy going to the golf course. And, they're usually pretty.
Yeah.
Hop on a cart. Have a few nooners.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Feel like you're in a different world.
Exactly.
In a different state. That's exciting.
And then during the scramble, I'll grab the putter. Philly 2 putt. That's what they call me. Occasionally Philly 1 putt if I'm really feeling it. But yeah.
Yeah. So love that activity as a goob. Fort building. Do we have additional arguments for fort building?
Not that I came up with, no. But just to recap a little bit, we spent most of our childhood spending the entire day outside in the woods, building forts in the summer. In the winter, down at the bottom of the driveway or at the end of the cul-de-sac, building snow forts, and just a lot of great memories there. And a lot of our, I feel like one of the reasons you and I get along so well now is that we really worked through some communication stuff early on with that.
That's true. A lot of communication there. Yeah. The other lasting impact I would say with Goobs, though, is you and Lydia currently work together.
Yeah.
And
Lydia's still telling me what to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think she likes it that way.
I think she's very comfortable with that. Yeah. Her ideal world would be that you would also be
that she could also tell
wing.
Me what to do.
Yeah. But she'll take what she can get.
Long term, maybe that will be the case. Okay, so do you have a leaning? We're at halftime right now. Do you have one that is pulling at your heartstrings?
I'm leaning toward fort building.
Okay.
That's where my heart lies right now. I don't know though. I don't know. I might go Goobs. The thing was, I was thinking about this morning. When I woke up this morning, I had a little bit of time before I had to leave.
Reflect.
Yeah, exactly. To think, reflect. And I thought about actually going out into the woods, going to our old fort, just but it felt like that would be an advantage then. Like, it felt like it would be unfair.
That's
because
true.
then I would have all that nostalgia rush right there with me.
I do think that I took more pride in what we built as far as forts than what we built as far as Goobs. Because I do think that Lydia was the leader of the Goob pack, right? Whereas with fort building, it was you and me together. We were the leaders. And so, and I think we were a pretty good team. I don't feel like I bossed you around as much as Lydia bossed us around.
Right, yeah. Lydia had a great way. I mean this in, all good things here. In fact, shout out Lydia.
Yeah.
But Lydia had she had a great way of manipulating people.
Yeah.
In a healthy way.
Right.
But yeah, it did feel, I feel like the fort building did feel very cooperative.
And it was more of our own. And we did spend so much time doing it. And then if we had taken that out of our childhood, what would we have spent our time doing?
Right.
Probably playing video games or something.
Exactly.
Yeah. I feel like it's a close matchup, but I'm going with fort building.
Yep. I believe my love for the woods comes from our fort building. And
my love for hikes.
Exactly. Yep. I'm going fort building.
All right. Awesome, guys. So we have fort building. So that is the number 3. Fort building will play the number 1 roof sitting.
Yep.
Okay, in our final 4 matchup. Let's go grandmas and Friday Night Football.
This is hard.
Yeah. Deep breath, guys. Deep breath.
This is a big one.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Go.
a couple things that we didn't bring up last time, a couple light things. So crushes. I don't know, like one of the things at Friday night football games was when you weren't, or like when you were in middle school, you'd walk around, right? And it was a social thing. So they're always cute boys and such, girls, depending. But I do feel like that social aspect, especially because for me, I went to a Christian school up until 8th grade. So I wasn't in middle school. So it was an added element of excitement going to Friday night football games because you could be seen.
Yeah, you put on your good clothes.
Exactly.
The same ones I'm wearing actually most days now.
They still fit, guys.
Yeah, I haven't grown a lot since middle school. Yeah, that's huge. That's a good point. Yeah, the overall social aspect of the Friday night football games. Also, and I feel like we did this together some, but it was kind of fun just like walking around the new stadiums.
Yeah.
Like same thing as we talked about last week with our hotel exploration. But it was anytime you go to a new stadium, you go see all the nooks and crannies.
Yeah, that's true.
Climb under the bleachers if that's possible. There's probably a couple high schoolers making out down there.
That's always exciting.
Yeah, you love to see it. Yep. Just a couple of kids. Young love,
Couple of kids.
There's a Wedding Crashers quote that we could quote here, but then we would get the explicit tag. So.
Yeah, exactly. So we're moving on.
Yep.
The other piece I would say as far as lasting impact is my senior year, I was a stats girl, and I still very much enjoy statistics when looking at football, particularly fantasy football.
Well, I was going to say, I feel like Friday Night Football did shape a lot of our affinity for football season.
Exactly.
Yep.
Like this is the best time of the year.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yep.
You got college football going. You got the NFL kicking off. You got fantasy starting. I mean, you have high school football going on.
Yep.
I mean, it's
you got parlays. You got parlay season now.
Yeah. I mean, now you can bet.
Yep.
That's exciting. Phil's got multiple parlays running.
Yep. Putting a down payment down by the end of the season, boys. So
you heard it right here. I get too emotionally attached to my parlays, so I limit them. Also, I have a lot of painful losses with fantasy football, which again, you have some painful losses with fantasy football too.
Oh yeah.
Neither of us has won a championship. Have you won a championship?
Nope.
No. A couple second places.
I had an 8-year streak where I never came in worse than third.
Yeah.
And never won.
No.
It's devastating.
You're not going to win this year either, because...
Yeah, apparently not. Yahoo thinks I'm going to come in last, so...
So a lot of lasting impact with football.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously it's still going on.
Yeah, and Courtney and I still drive, especially come playoff season, Courtney and I still drive 2.5 hours to go to the Chardon football games. A lot of that is because our nephew is playing.
Yeah.
But still, it's magical.
There is something that's really uniting about Friday night football.
Mm-hmm.
Grandma's house. Let's see. So the idea of Sunday dinners is still lasting throughout our family.
Mm-hmm.
Mom has Sunday dinners for our family. I would say every other aunt has Sunday dinners for their family and grandkids now. And so that when I did not live here, I would have Sunday dinners with friends. Because I miss them so much. And there's something that's really nice about gathering together with family or close ones on a Sunday and breaking bread together, right? That is community. That is beautiful. And not a lot of children had that and have that now.
And in a world where community is becoming less and less a part of everyone's daily life, it's something that's important to hold on to.
Mm-hmm. And then so I'm going to go deep here. I know this is a levity podcast, but I do feel like with the gravity of this matchup, it requires, we're at halftime, it requires some digging deep, really.
Mm-hmm.
So for Grandma's house, for me, say one, it was my first memory was there. My memory of our brother Steven passing away. And so that house, and then my memory of seeing Grandpa the morning after he passed away. And I remember sitting on Dad's lap and saying goodbye to him in his bed. Right there. I also remember when Grandpa had the he had shout out Grandpa, shout out Pappy.
Legend.
He had this receptor that would pick up the police communications, right? So he listed it on the police communications. And I remember when Julie Love passed away, she was 16 years old, and I heard all of that on the police communications, and I didn't know it was her, but they were rushing to her house. They were rushing an ambulance, and this was when I was like 13 or 14. We were down there. So I would say that Grandma's house in a positive spin on all of that, like, helped me confront death and be comfortable with death and know that there is hope after death. That is not the end. But it was something that I really faced at Grandma and Grandpa's house, which was like, of all places to face it, was the safest place to do that. So that's me digging deep for grandmas.
Yeah. That was good. I did not have anything like that prepared here. But I do want to, most of the time we've been skipping over things that we talked about last week, but I do want to briefly touch on it because it's important in this matchup. And we mentioned last week that our friendships with our cousins was really created because of that weekly tradition at Grandma's house. And we are still, I mean, I still talk to my cousins more than really almost any of my other friends.
True.
So I just think that, yeah, in terms of community, relationship building, I'm going to go with Grandma's house. It's very hard to go against Friday Night Football.
It is.
It's an early exit, but it's just tough matchup, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I'm also going to go with Grandma's. Really hard to beat that. So we got Grandma's house. Okay, I think, do we need to call in?
Yeah, we need to call in. Oh yeah, it's funny because I was already doing Cedar Point versus Grandma's house. And I was like, spoiler, I'm going Cedar Point. No. Well, yeah, we'll phone a friend.
Okay, we can pull up this chair, Juji's. There we go.
My heart is racing.
As it should.
Yeah. Perhaps the type of heart racing moment similar to what you get on Millennium Force, the 310-foot tall, 300-foot drop, 92-mile-an-hour first Giga coaster in the world.
Okay.
Spoiler: the matchup debate has something to do with Cedar Point.
I'm trying not to
put my fur back on.
So I don't know what the question yet is.
Okay, so our matchup for the trips side of the bracket was number 1 seed Cedar Point versus 2 seed Ellicottville. Philip chose Cedar Point. I chose Ellicottville. We are very grateful to have our oldest sister here. This is Julie, everyone. And she is being brought in as our tiebreaker. Now, obviously, she is 11 years older than me, 14 years older than Phil, so our childhoods look different. But she participated in both of these activities. So, Julia would like to start with, some of your initial thoughts about the Cedar Point versus Ellicottville matchup.
I know it's tough.
Just thinking, I was not prepped for this, so this is good. I'm getting my thoughts fresh. I began going to Ellicottville way earlier than I did Cedar Point.
Okay.
So that would be a factor. I learned to ski there. We had many family trips with other families. I was obsessed with certain wallpapers.
Oh,
the wallpaper was great. Oh, you know what? And also that weird little door,
nooks.
the little peek door.
There's a
peek
door
bathroom.
one of the shared.
It's kind of fun as a kid, though,
there
right?
There was a toilet off the kitchen that you could, and like back stairs that went up behind it. And you could peep through to people.
That was exciting.
That might start swaying. That makes me sound a little pervy.
Well, it's all fun and games when you're
right, exactly
6 to 12. Really, you just want to freak people out.
Yeah,
it was
for sure didn't do it after that.
The toilet who had like a queen pineapple on it. So
yeah,
there was a fascinating amount of bunk rooms.
Yes.
About 25 people. Did you talk about
that? That's exactly what we said.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah.
I'm confirming. These two can be trusted.
Yes.
Right? And I have great memories of après ski days where like the van was opened up at the bottom of the hill and we just had our food. I had my first crushes there.
Ooh,
Families,
Wow,
families,
yeah.
crushes.
families with boys who could ski and were
Yeah.
cute.
Just hitting
And
the
I could-
slaloms.
Yeah, they were. Oh, they
Yeah.
could mogul.
Yeah.
I couldn't mogul, but I watched them mogul with big dewy eyes. Yeah. I mean, it's hands down it's Elgin.
So how about
for me. Cedar Point, I have great memories of. I have not been able to get back in years, and we have like, I think the Cedar Point memories where we would go, because we didn't start going to hotels overnight till maybe my teens.
Right,
Yes.
right.
And you guys
I think
were-
that's true.
Is that right?
Yeah.
My late teens, because
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
If we're not careful here, Julie's going to start talking about how tough her childhood was.
yeah, I have,
Yeah.
have I? Because what they don't have on their bracket, because they didn't experience, is Orlando in a private jet.
Right.
Yeah.
So
that's
that's
true. Yeah, yeah.
We had a pre-fill, so
We got
you know.
we got hotels in Sandusky.
it got hard after child number 2 for Grandma and Grandpa Tippett to fly us on the private jet. So it's actually Arnold
Sad.
Palmer's private jet, but
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Wow.
She had it better than us.
I don't think I get to complain anymore. I probably can't complain anymore, can I?
That was a
they
really
got,
big
They got
realization.
sugar cereals though, so
we did, yeah. We
we
got
had
Cinnamon
grape
Toast
nuts.
Crunch and
We had
the
grape nuts.
Residence Inn in Sandusky.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah, no, I love Cedar Point, but it was never like Ellicottville was a defining childhood
Okay.
kind of experiences for me.
I can live.
I
I can
think-
live with this
Okay.
result. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Julie, thank you very much.
Yeah.
You've been quite
I
Much
didn't realize
appreciated.
there was a video as well, and apologize to everyone for my hair situation.
That's okay. I look
We gotta go.
ridiculous right now too. So
Thank you. I'm glad to move this on, everyone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
we might be calling you back down in a few minutes for the Final Four matchups.
Well, she's not gonna have much to say about sitting on the roof or fort building. So
yeah,
we
that's
gotta
true.
figure
That's a
that
good
one
point.
out
Yeah,
on
that's
our
on
own.
us.
Okay, great. So Final Four matchup, guys. We got Ellicottville versus Grandma's house. We then have sitting on the roof versus fort building. I like these matchups. Which one do you want to do first?
Let's do Ellicottville and Grandma's house.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just really difficult to vote against Grandma's house.
It
That's
is.
what we went up to Ellicottville once a year or twice a year, whatever. You
Mhm.
know, we went down to Grandma's house every Sunday,
Right.
right? If we were to go with lasting impact or what would I remove from my childhood, I think this is where you go like,
Right.
what would you remove from your childhood?
Yep.
And I would never remove Grandma's house from my childhood.
Yep.
I could live without Ellicottville. We're both athletic. We could have learned to ski
We
and
could have figured it out.
snowboarding.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It would've
Later
been
in
fine.
life, we'd be fine.
One quick aside that I meant to bring up in the initial thing with Ellicottville is when you think about negative memories of a place, and this isn't. I don't even know if this is a negative memory, but I just remember specifically it was more of like I was in my punk phase, like I was like 13ish, you know,
Who's
and I was
punk?
like a little bit of a punk, and went to Ellicottville with Nick Tippett. I don't even have my phone on me. Shout out though. Bam, bam, bam. And I just remember we were at the top of a hill and we were both pretty good at downhill skiing at this
Mhm.
point. And so we're like, oh yeah, let's race to the bottom. So we raced to the bottom, and at the bottom we were like, okay, we're gonna race to the bottom of the hill and then we're gonna cut across. We wanted to go to the lodge. So we were like, all right, let's race to the bottom of this hill specific. This is important. We're gonna race to the bottom of this hill, and then we're gonna ski over to where the main lift is,
Yep.
take our skis off, go in the lodge. So we race. I win. I get to the bottom of the hill first, and then we're on like the super flat portion going back to the building.
Yeah.
I've already raised my arms in victory.
Yeah.
I'm starting to undo my gloves. I had both poles in one hand, and then Nick comes
Nope.
flying
Nope.
past me.
Nope.
And we're like 20 feet from the lift at this point, and he has to do like a hard hockey stop, but he gets there, he hockey stops, he's like, I won! And then we proceeded to argue about that for probably the next like 3 hours, like every lift hill. And I just imagine being the third, like it was a quad lift hill, and you're usually on there with at least 3 people. And I
Right.
remember specifically after that, there was a lift, and Nick was on one side, and I was on the other, and a stranger was in the middle, and Nick and I are just going back and forth about this, and that and it wasn't a short lift. I felt very, very bad for that person. I don't know what this has to do with my argument as a positive or a negative. It's just a memory. Obviously, Final Four matchup. I'm going Grandma's house, For the record, that would have beaten Cedar Point for me too.
Yeah.
Would have been close.
Probably closer than it should have been.
Yeah.
But...
Would have been tight. Would have been tight.
Grandma's house.
Yep. Grandma's house moves on to the championship.
All right. Roof sitting, fort building.
I think they both contribute to our love of nature.
They do.
You know? The night sky, the woods, the trees.
I would say again, this test to me comes down to the question, what would you remove from childhood?
Yeah.
And if you could remove something, what would leave the bigger hole if removed? And I think that fort building would leave the bigger hole if it was removed from childhood.
I agree.
Because we spent so much of our time.
Although I do think...
cannot understate how much time we spend in the woods, guys.
So much time in the woods. I do think it would have been an absolutely hilarious championship matchup to have cultivating relationships with all of our cousins and our grandparents versus sitting on a roof. But I agree. I think the rooftop sessions had a nice run to the Final Four. I think fort building moves on.
Yep. I like that.
Yep.
Okay, guys. So we got our championship matchup. As the brackets go, normally as you go deeper, the arguments have been made and the decisions you come to the decisions more quickly, right? And I think we've seen that here. So we have grandmas and fort building. Again, cultivating
lifelong relationships and friendships with your cousins versus
cannot be
making a teepee.
A pretty subpar teepee too. Like, we're not like building Lincoln logs over here.
Right, yeah.
There were no tools used. Neither of us are handy.
Yeah, we're not purchasing property and building from scratch over here.
Exactly. It had, yes. That lifelong impact is not there. But we are still playing fantasy football with our cousins.
Yep.
And so I think, really, it's grandma's house.
Yeah.
She wins the championship.
I mean, in a blowout.
Too. Yeah, exactly. It's not even close. Yeah. It's like when Butler.
If Cedar Point wasn't going to take down grandma's house.
No one was. Exactly. If Cedar Point got knocked out. Do we have any closing thoughts on childhood?
No, it was good stuff though. Like it was a good childhood. Wouldn't trade it for the world. I hope to one day be able to provide my children with a childhood similar to what we got to experience.
I would second that. I think we are very fortunate as children. We we're just surrounded by love. I think that was, and grandma's house is super indicative of that. Again, bringing a child into the world, want this little nugget to be surrounded by love, to be surrounded by a good example of what family is, of what sticking by one another is, and of what faith looks like, which I think is the exact childhood we grew up with, and having fun, a lot of fun, and being creative and spending your time creating things, as rudimentary as they may be.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Well, Philopian Tube, thank you very much for joining Womb Warmer.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to the Womb Warmer's most embarrassing life moments bracket that I'm sure will happen at some point.
It's going to be me on a monologue for 2 hours working through a therapy session, guys.
And me doing the rap horn every few minutes.
Sayonara.